Dr. Elwynn Taylor over here hails from Iowa State University, which I'm an alumni. He's in charge of the extension program on climatology. When he's not speaking, he's teaching at Iowa State University. Dr. Taylor's list of accomplishments, books, and technical documents is about this high. But like I said, the recommendation of customers and friends is probably more important. Furthermore, I've gone through Dr. Taylor's presentation, and I think you'll find that his presentation is of value to a modern farming operation. So if you would you please help me welcome Dr. Elwynn Taylor.
Thank you very much. I am honored to be here, and I always love to talk to people from big industry. And agriculture is the oldest industry on the earth. It is the biggest industry on the earth. It is the most important industry on the earth. If it wasn't for agriculture, we'd have no culture at all. All culture is based on agriculture. Nations rise and they fall. Cities, great cities build up. Maybe they last 100 years until they destroy the soil around the city area and their agriculture is gone, then they disappear into history. Agriculture, the most important industry. Your industry, the most important people in the world. One day I was sitting next to the new dean of teachers at Iowa State University, and he looked at me and he said, "What do you do?" I said, "I teach climate." He said, "Why do we need a climatologist?" I said, "Because agriculture is the most important industry on the earth." He looked at me and said, "Well, yes." I said, "And agriculture's most important area is the Midwest. And the leading agricultural state at that time, I don't know if it's still true, is Iowa. And the most important thing to a farmer is the weather. And that's why you hired me, the most important person in the world." Well, I don't know if that all adds up or not. In fact, I'm sure it doesn't. But I am sure that agriculture is the vocation that is the most important and is the oldest and is where nations come from and where they fail if their agriculture fails. There's so many things to talk about. I'm looking at the world right here. This is this morning's picture. You can see the clouds, the different hues of azure that you see in the ocean, or different temperatures of the water. The purple down here is ice. The white up there is as well. This is frozen ground, not so covered with ice right now, as it's, but it will be soon. Here is a front, a long front, all the way from Alaska past Hawaii. As that moves across Hawaii, they'll say, "Oh, here comes another Pineapple Express." That is, the weather will travel right up along that front and bring more precipitation up to this area. You notice that is the southwestern portion of the nation of Canada. Well, they've been getting quite a bit of precipitation as these fronts come along. Here's the remnants of one. Here's the one that went through yesterday. Here's one that went through a while before that. Here's a tropical storm, actually a double one, and some more that could be forming almost as we speak. Some of those may become hurricanes. We can see a lot of things as we look. We can see what's going on as these fronts move up through the agricultural area of Brazil and down to Argentina. I'm looking at the storms across the Pacific. This is the area of the El Nino, but there's no storms there. The El Nino stopped. El Nino's our friend when it's there. When there's an El Nino going on, we have a 70% chance of an above trend line yield in the U.S. Corn Belt. When it's the opposite of El Nino, when the storms disappear from here and all are over here, that's La Nina. 70% chance of a below trend yield. And we have just switched from being El Nino-like, and these last remnants are kind of disappearing. Well, will we have an above trend line yield? I think so. The USDA estimate came out, made everybody angry at them, but they're used to that. They always make everybody angry. But their estimate came out right on the money of trend line yield for the nation's corn and for the nation's soybean. They said trend. People said, why did they say that? I said, what can be safer than saying trend? But I don't think they were looking at safe, because that is the same number that I had calculated. And my way is independent of theirs. I calculate from the weather. The USDA calculates from, that corn looks excellent. That corn looks very poor. They look at how many reports are very poor, how many are excellent. And last time they got that, how did the yield turn out? And that's how they base the percent of the deviation from the trend line yield. Well, we see the weather from satellites. They're wonderful things. This is warm temperatures, this is cooler temperatures. Australia is kind of cool right now. The southern part of South America is. In fact, we're quite cool right here. That's been great. If you want to save a crop that's on the edge of being too dry, a good way to do it is by not having it be hotter than usual, not even as hot as usual for July and August. We achieved that. That will add a couple of bushels to that USDA estimate of a trend line yield. Well, let's leave that picture and look at the precipitation. I put on these pictures where you get the pictures if you want, and you can get a copy of these slides, maybe from the computer, maybe they'll give them to you some other way, but weather.gov. You can see, here's the precipitation of the last month, last 30 days. And this is the dry area. These are the wet areas, right there. Suddenly, this has become a very dry area. Up there where they're just about to get a storm coming in that you already saw from the previous picture. Well, this is the dry area here, and over here to Ohio, there's a few problems have developed in there. Oh, look at this. Yes, you happen to be right here where it's a bit spotty, but generally things are pretty good. Here is the U.S. Drought Monitor. Drought comes in 5 categories. The first category, or they call it category 0, is abnormally dry. That's yellow. And then these color of tan and kind of rusty, 1 and 2. They call 2 a severe drought. What is a drought? Everybody argues about it's a drought. No, it isn't. Yeah, no. We don't need to argue about it. We know if we've got a drought, we've got Congress. Congress passed a law. If your yield for your county is cut to, well, if it's decimated, 10%. If the yield is cut to 10% below your trend, by law, that's a drought, a decimated yield. Don't get decimated mixed up with devastated. They're not synonyms. Decimated means cut by 10%. And if we have a decimated yield, even though the newspapers and the TV can't understand that means 10%, it does. The crop comes out 10% below usual, then it's a drought. We measure this county by county. If you have a decimated crop in your county, 10% below trend, you've got federal relief for a drought. Whatever the USDA has available that year for your county and all the counties that are adjacent to yours. And that's the way the system works. And so whatever drought relief is available that year. Some years we need it, some years we don't. Some years we need our crop insurance, some years we don't. There was a time when we had the Dust Bowl, destroyed the effectiveness of agriculture, of course. But when the Dust Bowl was over, agriculture didn't bounce right back. Well, what's the matter? Why aren't we getting the production? Well, the farmers all left. They moved to California. They did different things from many large farming areas of the country. Well, why'd they leave? Well, they were starving to death. They had to go away. Well, we can't have that. It's our most important industry. Maybe we can have crop insurance. And with crop insurance, if we get a bad year, we'll make crop insurance good enough to carry for 3 bad years in a row. And then when the good year comes, we'll be able to go right back to farming. And crop insurance was born. And it was needed again. It had been needed in the Dust Bowl. The 40s were pretty good years. I mean, it wasn't good years in the 40s. We were in a war. But as far as weather was concerned, it was good. Except till we got up to 1947. And that introduced a drought time from 47 through 53. And they came and they went. And crop insurance carried the farmers through it. And they said, good, this works. And then in the 60s, it wasn't important at all. 1972, I'm looking for a job. I want to get a government job. I want to work for the Weather Bureau. I've got a degree in climatology, and now I'd like a job working for the Weather Bureau. And they say, sorry, we're not hiring anybody. We've got a hiring freeze. We're out of money in this country. And we're not going to go further in federal debt, was their attitude there in the early 70s. And they said, we've got to cut out all of these expensive things that we're doing that we just spend money on, don't get any return on. Here's something that we spend a lot of money on. We never get anything back from it. It's not needed anymore. It was needed in the 30s and into the 40s and through the 50s, and that's crop insurance. We didn't need it at all. In the 60s, the yields just kept going up every year, and there wasn't any bouncing around. Maybe somebody had an individual problem, but the insurance can cover that. But the big program we have to keep the industry alive, we're just spending money. Let's do away with it. Before they did away with it, somebody said, at least ask the university something. So the University of Illinois sent a professor to testify to Congress, and they took a friend from Wisconsin and one from Iowa State. And those 3 professors talked to Congress. They said, no, we haven't needed farm insurance. We've had these wonderful yields through the 60s, and they haven't had the ups and downs. It's just been up. He said, that's plant breeding and management, and the weather just hasn't brought us the problems that we used to have. But come 1973, you'll be happy if you still have crop insurance. And they left Congress with that attitude. You'll be happy if you still have it. And sure enough, we had a disastrous drought. It would have been a disaster if we hadn't still had crop insurance. And so it stayed, and it's still there, serving the same need. They said, how in the world did you 3 professors know that we were going to have a drought in 73? They said, well, because we have one every 19 years. What do you mean every 19 years? We have a serious drought every 19 years. Maybe it's 20, maybe it's 18, but it's 19 on the average. It gets one either way, because nature doesn't read the book. But this is how long has this gone on? Well, 800 years, looking at tree rings. So that's how you knew. Yeah, that's one of the cycles that happens in our world, that this kind of comes along about that often. And so people started paying attention to that. That's called the Benner cycle, by the way, named for a farmer from the Ohio-Indiana border area who farmed, and he noticed this way back before the 1880s. And he just said, hey, look at all of these droughts that have come along right on schedule. And so he published that as the Benner cycle. He called it Farmer Benner's Prophecies. And sure enough, they just kept coming along like that, right until the time they saved our crop insurance. Climate's changing, but there's no reason to think that that part of it's changing. It's that those things still seem to go on. Well, here's a drought. And this drought is this first stage. It's called abnormally dry. That little sandy colored place in there is the second stage. Well, it's numbered. This numbered 0, that's numbered 1, that's numbered 2, that's number 3, and 3 is called extreme drought. It takes number 3 or 4 to give you a legal drought, 10% below trend. What the stages 0 and 1, the yellow and the rusty colors, all they do is take you from the chance of a record high yield down to trend. Then it's those last two categories that take you below trend to legal drought. So people get all upset about that. They say, ooh, look, this is all drought area. Those 4 counties, yes. The rest in Iowa can expect trend or above unless this spreads in this month or next month before the harvest is in. The drought monitor comes out each month, and sometimes they put it out each week. They're starting to do that. And so on Thursday, out comes the drought monitor to show you how things are looking now. We have the 10-day, the 6 to 10-day outlook from the National Weather Service about what the weather's going to do. It's the 6 to 10-day outlook. It's called an outlook. It's not a 6 to 10-day forecast. We've got laws. Law says you cannot call it a forecast unless it's got a history of being 80% accurate or better. So we say, here's how we're going to make our forecast for what's going to happen day after tomorrow. And we do that. How often are you right? More than 80% of the time. Okay, that's a forecast. If you're not right 80% of the time or more, you can't call it a forecast. But I'm still right 70% of the time, they call it an outlook. So outlooks don't have to be 80% correct. And I'll guarantee you it's not. This is the outlook, 6 to 10 day outlook. It says normal temperatures or near normal in the Corn Belt. Hot up there, hot down there, and maybe of these other colors in between. But it isn't 80% correct. It's not a forecast. But it's more than 60, so it counts as an outlook. If it's not right 60% of the time, they don't even get to call it an outlook. I call it a coin flip. But these are if you listen carefully to what the government says, at least they do have some rules, they stick to them. Well, this is normal temperatures. That's a good outlook to have. And in the center, they're quite often right. Here is the 6 to 10 day for precipitation. They think it's going to be wet up this band from about Arkansas up to Maine, and it might catch a lot of Michigan and maybe Chicago. Kind of go on this line up here from Kansas City to Chicago, north of Kansas City to Chicago, and it'll be dropping off. All you need to have the rain stop north of a line from Kansas City to Chicago is a low pressure sitting still, usually for 6 weeks, if they stay 6 days, in the Gulf of Alaska. And it stops the rain north of a line from Kansas City to Chicago. And I don't know why nobody ever talked about that or even noticed it. Except that in '88, when we had less rain than we got during the Dust Bowl, it wasn't as hot, thank goodness, but it was less rain than in the Dust Bowl in '88. And it was the wettest year in history in the Yukon, because a big low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska was sending all the storms that usually come across to the Midwest up to the Yukon. Well, those storms that come over the Rocky Mountains don't bring the rain. No, they bring the disturbance. Where does the moisture come from? The Gulf of Mexico. The moisture comes up from the Gulf of Mexico, the disturbances come in from the west or the northwest. When they bump into each other, you've got sometimes violent weather. But at least you get rain. Or you might get a tornado or other kind of violent things. You got two things coming together and the third thing was already here. But it takes all of them to give us our precipitation pattern. Air that's filled with moisture coming up from the Gulf and a disturbance coming across to cause that air to begin to rise. Air has to be rising to rain. If it's going down, it doesn't rain. Air has to be going up. It can be going up over a mountain. It can be going up just because it weighs less than the air around it, so it goes up like a hot air balloon. Might be because it's warm. Might be because it's wet. What? Wet air goes up? Yeah. But Mom always said, we've got really heavy air today. Look at all the fog out there. Well, Mom is almost never wrong about anything, but she was wrong about that. Didn't matter that she was wrong, but what weighs the most? Humid air or dry air? If you took high school chemistry, you know which weighs the most. The air is mostly made out of nitrogen, two of them put together, that's called N2. If you add up how much they weigh put together, and you add up how much H, two H's, that's 1 and 1, and an O, that's a V16, that weighs 18, and then nitrogen, we're up to 24. The more water I add, the lighter the air gets. So the moist air starts to go up and can start storms. How often does a thunderstorm? It's going on, we can see it on the maps, coming across southern Minnesota or coming across Iowa, coming right for you, and why'd it quit? Because it's been dry here. And the thunderstorm only lasts 20 minutes. You remember that from when you were a kid. Johnny, come home now. You're over at your friend's house. It's raining, cats and dogs here. I'll be home in 20 minutes, Mom. Because you know the thunderstorms don't last long. They only last about 20 minutes. Then you go home. And the next one starts. And then it goes for its 20 or 25, 30 minutes, and it's done. Then the next one starts, often right in the same place. You get a little break, and it starts up again, and it just keeps moving east. Coming along, raining, it runs out of time, it stops, it's going over your farm that's dry. And it doesn't start up again over that dry air. It needs to be over moist air that's rising. And so it just stays until it gets over past you. And there's a moist area, and the air's going up, and the thunderstorm starts again. You say, skipped me again. It always skips the dry place. That it has to start again about every 20 to 30 minutes. That's how thunderstorms work. Well, through the 28th of August, we expect about normal temperatures, not real hot, not real cool, but maybe on the cool side of usual, and above normal precipitation everywhere south of where we are right now. And we've got this little corner here. It's not accurate the way they drew that. They just do their best. But they try on that. And 8 to 14 days, 2 weeks out. Still cooler than usual. Warmer than usual. West of the Continental Divide. That's probably right. When the temperature changes from warmer than usual to cooler than usual on the Continental Divide, it's probably going to stick for weeks, if not months. If they say it changes as you come across the Missouri River or the Mississippi River or the Ohio River, it might be gone and changed in a day or two. But if the Continental Divide is where it changes, it tends to persist. This may persist, leave us for kind of a cool fall, even though it's on the dry side of usual. If it's hotter than usual, plants need more water than usual. So, if it's 5 degrees hotter than usual, if we get a little bit of extra rain, then it ought to work out just fine. Right. That is correct. And if we're not getting enough rain, but it'll stay cooler than usual, the plants won't need as much water. That's right. This is called the aridity index. that getting hotter than usual, if the rain stays the same, we'll still run short of water. Getting cooler than usual, the rain staying the same, we'll have plenty. If it's hotter than usual and it gets rainier than usual too, it can compensate. Called aridity index. The worst case, low rain, high temperature. The wettest case, moderate to high rain, low temperature, when the plants don't use as much water. I'm going to pick your county. Here's the county. Here's the county next to us. This is where we're at on the computer, over at the University of, over at Nebraska, University Weather Station. And we're going to get this picture when we go to this website, and we blow it up till we can see the red dots, and I'm going to click on the red dot closest to us now, and this will tell me a lot of things about this county, or the areas in the county. But basically, I didn't know whether to click on here or here or here or there, but I want to know something about the county. So here is the county. And here is the yield history for corn, the 30-year trend. Always use 30 years to get the trend. There's some scientific reasons for that, and some mathematical reasons for it. We don't talk about a 5-year trend or a 10-year trend when we're talking about weather. We talk about a 30-year trend, and we do the same with the crop yield. So we'll look at 30 years. This is the trend line, the best straight line through the yields of this county in the last 30 years, and there's been some good years and some bad years. And you say, well, this was a really great year. If we have another yield like that, we'll really be, whoa. Those are awful droughts that are as good as that one. Don't judge your farm by the bushels per acre. Judge it by the percent of the trend. Look at your little trend map for your farm. If you don't have 30 years, make it for as many as you've got your proven yield for. Look at your graph. I don't have a graph. How come I don't have a graph? Is it because I don't know what my farm has yielded for the last 10 or 20 or 30 years? Well, I know it for the last 12 because I've got the proven yields are right here in this book. I've got a loose leaf with all my proven yields in. Make your graph. I don't know how to make graphs. I don't like to make graphs. I'm not going to make a graph. Hire a 10-year-old or a 14-year-old. They'll make it on your computer for you. And you'll pay them $10, and they'll think they're rich. They'll love you forever. And you'll put an extra $10,000 to $20,000 in your pocket just for making that graph and looking at it. And you'll say, boy, that was a lot of money I gave that little kid, wasn't it? $10, and only paid off $10,000 for $10 investment. And look at that for your farm. Look at it for your county. Look at it for your state. Look at it for your nation. This is the county. The crop reporting district you also get from the same computer site. The nation, you get the same thing. Now, why do I want that? Because I'm from Illinois. Why does Illinois want that? Because we've got coffee shops. And I talked to some guys down south of Peoria, and I said, how many of you are using, well, in those days, it was GRIP, crop insurance, versus insuring for my proven yield. How many use GRIP? Up with the hands. Every hand in the room. So I said, well, no sense in talking about that. Nobody's using their proven yield. Then I gave a talk 2 hours later in the very next county going east. And you can only tell the difference by seeing the sign. The land looks the same down there. The crop still looks the same wonderful. And everybody in the room, nobody had GRIP. Everybody was on proven yield. So I said, why are you using proven yield instead of GRIP? Do you know what he said? Because he does. It was a coffee shop decision. I love coffee shops. They're wonderful. But this is not risk management, your coffee shop decisions. This is social interaction and learning. But it is not the right way to make decisions on such a big business. An important one is your farm. Well, which one should I have then, smart guy? Should I insure my county's proven yield? Or should I insure my proven yield on my farm? If I don't have a proven yield for the farm, I don't have a choice. I can only insure the county. But the rest of us have a choice. Which one? Well, rule of thumb, the one you'd make money on. How do I know which one I'd make money on? If I look at my farm and it goes up and down, the yields go up and down like this, and the county just goes up and down like that, I say I'm insuring my farm. The thing that you're going to collect on has a big variability. If my farm only has this much variability, not near as much as the county, because I'm such a good farmer on such good land, then I'll insure the county. Insure the one you're going to collect on. Well, there's where the $10,000 came from for spending the $10 to have your 14-year-old make you a graph. And you can tell some other things from the graph. And look what this says. Corn yield trend was 189 on that line, and the actual yield was 186.6. We can go on in, click on any of these and see what the actual yield was and what the trend, get the percent of trend. Your computer can do that for you for your farm. Oh, all I did was click up here from corn to soybean, clicked it back and forth. Now I can see the soybeans for the county. Sometimes this county gets 60 bushels to the acre. What about the neighboring counties? Okay, I'm going to be looking at corn, sorry. Look, I'm pushing 200 over here on this county. And on this county, Carroll County, I'm pushing 230. Well, I've got way over 200 a lot of years. And here we are in our county right here, and we haven't got to 200 yet. We're getting close, though, on our good years. Well, know what's going on in your county. You can know for your crop reporting district. Know what's going on in your area. What's the wettest month of the year? Well, I know that anyway. It's June usually, but sometimes it can be July or August or May, kind of in there. How much colder is it at night than it is in the day? Oh, about 10, 20, maybe 22 degrees cooler at night in the middle of summer. Why do I care? You care because that is the key to riches. If you want to be financially successful on your farm, be smarter than the government. And that doesn't take much. But it does take something. And the something that it takes is knowing the difference in temperature between day and night. That's because corn can only gain weight in the daytime when the sun's shining. That's the only time you can get dry weight. But it can get older day or night. Maturity. If it's a warm night, it gets older faster than if it's a cold night. Well, you knew that already. I had these green apples sitting here. I had a half a dozen of them. I put 3 of them in the refrigerator every night and put them out in the morning next to the other green apples. And a week later, the ones I put in the refrigerator every night were still green, and the ones that stayed out 24/7 got ripe first. Yeah, if the nights are cooler, it takes longer to get ripe. Well, who cares? My corn, tasseled, pollinated, that's great. From silking to dent, 85% of the weight I'm going to sell gets put in my grain between silking and dent. And I just go to dent because we know when that is for everybody, not just for us. It's hard to know when we're 100% done, but 85% is good enough for calculations in this world where we only have to do better than the government. The 85% of the job is done between silking and dent. My hybrid usually takes 40 days to get from silking to dent. But if the nights are extra cool, it might make it 40 days? No, it took 44 days to get from silking to dent. 44 days, that's 10% longer than usual. That's like keeping my steer on finishing rations 10% longer. If I put my steer on finishing rations early, so we got 10% longer time than the other steers at the fair, I win. They say you cheated. But still, that is your crop on finishing rations. Not 40 days from silking to dent, but 44. What state has the highest corn yield per acre? Anybody know? Washington. Always. In their worst year, they're still better than anywhere else in the country. Why? The nights are 34 degrees cooler than the days, and the daytime temperature is the same as it is here. And the soils are the same as it is here. Good soils. Their moisture is about the same in the places where they set those records for corn, where they grow the corn. That's the way the thing works. Why do they always have the highest yield? Because instead of 40 days from silking to dent, the time that the grain is gaining its weight, 40 days here, 56 in Washington. Same hybrid. You can't beat them. And you won't. Well, okay, that's good to know. Everybody's talking about climate change these days. I'm a climatologist. These people say, Elwynn, do you believe in climate change? I say, whoa, just a minute. You asked me if I believe in climate change. I've got to explain to you. Climate is my profession, not my religion. I believe in the Bible. My opinions about climate are knowledge-based. There's a place for each. Don't ask me if I believe in climate change. What I tell you about climate change, I know from knowledge. What I know about Sunday school, I know from belief. And they're both important, at least in my life. But we wouldn't have all these fights about climate change if people stopped talking about what they believe and start talking about what we know. And what I know so far is the biggest problem we've got from our changing climate is that rice goes down 4% in yield for every degree warmer the ocean around those islands that are growing the rice gets, because the nights stay warmer and the days are staying the same. And millions of dollars are being spent trying to figure out why the rice yield's going down. Have we worn out the soils? Is there a disease? Is there something wrong with the genetics of the rice? It's just that the nights are warmer because the oceans around the island are warmer. It's the biggest factor we've got in climate right now, the day-to-night temperature. But it's not the same as you see on this graph every year. Some years it's close, some years it's greater. All you need to do is pay attention. Now I'm going to talk about what I call the aridity index. Aridity, like arid, index. This was a bad year, 2012. And this is 0. This is less water stress. This is more water stress. Water stress is going up in April and May, eases off a bit, and then up again. That's 2012. And what are we talking about it for? Northwest Illinois, your crop reporting district, the 9 counties of the northwestern portion of the state. What's going on now? Well, here's 1970, this black line. 0 has come out with a trend line yield. It gets pretty good, a little bit bad. And that's quite a bit like 2017 has been to date. In fact, 2017 and 1970, they're close. If it stays close for another 2 weeks, you're going to come out with the same yield you got in 1970. Of course, you don't know what that is unless you look at your graph for your county and for your farm, and you see what it is in bushels, and you say, well, that doesn't mean anything. Where was it from the trend? That's where it'll be from trend again. If it was 3% above trend then, it'll be 3% above trend now. That's called analog year. Find the analogous year. Well, the computer just did it for me. Big deal. All you've got to do is tell the computer, I would like to see what's going on with my aridity index in my county, in my crop reporting district, in my state. And then I'll go back on the graph and see what happened in the year that's most like it. First question I was asked when I moved to Iowa in 1979, Elwynn, what's the analog year for this year? And I said, what? The analog year. I said, what's an analog year? He says, a year that's just like this, because if I know the year the weather was just like this and see what the yield was that year, that's what it'll be this year. I said, that's what the trend will be. Yeah, that's what the trend will be this year, same as it was then. I said, okay, come to my office in 3 days and I'll tell you. So the next 3 days I figured out of all of the years since we started keeping records on corn, what one was most like this one to date. And the farmer came into my office 3 days later and I told him. He said, thanks. Disappeared. I didn't see him again till Christmas. Just before Christmas, he came into my office and said, here's your Christmas card. I said, thank you very much. How are things going? I was talking to him. He said, open your card. I opened the card. Merry Christmas, Elwynn. Thank you. $40,000. Fortunately, he had the good sense not to make the check out to Elwynn. He made it out to Iowa State University. That way, neither one of us went to jail. And I said, what's this for? He said, for telling me the analog year. I said, and this is how much money that made you? He said, no, that's 5% of it. I said, come by again. He has every year. And every year, he's donated another $40,000 to Elwynn's research projects. In fact, enough guys do that the university said, how much are we paying you? I said, nothing. You don't pay me as much as the farmers are turning into my account for knowing what the analog year is. So they know what's going to happen this year. And it's that easy to know. We're doing like we did in 70. And it's also pretty close to doing what it did. There's 2004, which we know was a good year, but it was quite a bit better there. We put in different years. What was the soybean yield for this county? I can't quite read that on there, but maybe you can, if that was focused better, maybe we could. I don't know if that, maybe that's focused as good as it can get. One of these will be the focus. Maybe I didn't take a picture in focus. Anyway, here is the high corn yield last year, 2016, for the state, right there. And number 2, number 3, number 4. Top 4 counties. Pretty good, you guys. About the same for the beans. And yeah, these things get published. Here's where you get them. Let's skip that. 2017 to August the 8th, the growing season up till now. The aridity index by county. What do we see when we look here? I see northeast Iowa, northwest Illinois. There I see things that are as good as it can get. Most likely to come up with a new record high yield if we continue after August 8th to still be in that category. Also, here's a place that's doing very well. Here's a place that's poor. That's where we're at the 3rd or 4th stage of drought going on. And we look at these. If you click on the district, you can see more detail. I'm going to go back last year. So here's what the picture looks like this year. Here's what it looked like on the same date last year. Well, we were almost as good right here in this part of the state. And it was pretty good, almost that good next to us. And so Illinois and up into Wisconsin and adjacent Iowa, okay, it was good. Another good place down there. Yeah, there's the best yields in the state of Illinois, there and there. And Iowa can come in about the same right across the border. Here's another good place. Good place, excellent places, and there they are. What about 2012? It was awful. I am showing you the difference from county to county better than any other analysis that's available, that anybody knows of at any price. You can see what's gone on in the counties. If you click on the county, you'll see the little graph. Remember that little line that goes along for what's going on. 2004 on August the 8th, and 2012 on August the 8th. And there are the differences. The USDA makes a forecast, or an outlook, or an estimate of what the yield of the crop will be. They started doing it back here in the 60s. And this is how wrong they are. They'd be right on that. They've been right 4 times. Okay? What good is the USDA forecast that's only been right 4 times? How many put great value in the USDA forecast? Raise your hand if you think it's the greatest thing that government's ever given you. Nobody. Why is it so useless? What do you mean, why is it useless? You can see it's always wrong. There's right. It's only been right 1, 2, 3, 4 times in history. 1, 2, 3, 4. What good's that? I'll tell you what good it is. The market goes to what the federal government's estimate is. The December contract moves to what fits that yield. And it's wrong. It's too high or it's too low. And if you know how wrong it is, you can be on the right side of the market. You know if they're too high or too low, and you know by how much. And you know what the price is. What would that be worth to you? First farmer that tried using this came in to me 2 years later and said, I said, what's that been worth to you? $1.3 million. I've paid off all the debts on my farm. I was getting worried. Now I'm the most optimistic guy the world's ever known. Paid off my debt in 2 years by knowing how wrong the USDA value is, because the market moves to that value. And you know if it's right, or if it's high, or if it's low. And you know by how much. Grain market depends on demand and supply primarily. They can be a bit about going to war or something else can happen. After planting, once the crop's in the ground, supply depends on the weather. Corn is at its highest potential yield the moment you put it into the ground. After that, it just goes down or holds. Bean can actually go up. Beans are smarter than corn. They're smarter than me, too, so I'm not going to talk about beans. But all corn does, it's got its greatest value when it goes in the ground. If everything is perfect, it's going toward its potential. If everything isn't perfect, it's whittling down. The December corn price at harvest time depends on the supposed supply. The USDA outlook is seldom correct. The weather effect is usually right. I say usually right. It's because my student that worked out how we calculate the weather effect said to me, Dr. Taylor, I don't know if we can use this, it's only 83% correct. I said that qualifies as a forecast by federal law. That was in 1982. Since then, we've been making our outlook of the grain market. We should have been right 80% of the time. We haven't been wrong yet. Should have been wrong 6 times. Maybe I'll be wrong this year and the next 5. Get it all back to balance. But still, the outlook by weather has been right. Not just right side of the market, but right to the usually 0.2 of a bushel for national yield. Whoops, skipped a very important thing here. This happens to be just for a city. I can pick any city I want in any Corn Belt state, any city that has a weather station. They're kind of scant in your county. So you might need to pick the closest good weather stations. But you'll find them when you go here to this place on the Mesonet. But look at this. These were days nights that the temperature was warmer than usual, starting in January. These were nights when the temperature was colder than usual. Cold nights, warmer nights, colder nights, about average night. But here's what counted: July and August, silking to dent. What was going on in 1994? Was there more red or more blue between silking and dent? Blue. Colder than usual nights. What was going on in 1995? It's mostly red, warmer than usual nights. 1994, one of the biggest mistakes the USDA ever made. They said it's going to be a year that's as bad as a drought. And it was a record high yield, and we knew it because the nights were colder than usual. That easy, the main factor. The growing degree days were getting behind. In July and August, what's ideal? Get 150 behind in July and August. Be normal when you come into July. And there will be a record high yield. You almost can't help it. What happens if here the nights are warm? You get more growing degree days. If you get too many growing degree days, what happens? You get from silking to dent. Instead of 40 days, you might make it in 36 days. You've just cut 4 days off. You've just cut 10% off your yield. That's a legal drought. Drought when there was no drought by weather, just because the nights were warmer than usual. And you knew it. The kid that you paid the $10 to make your graph can punch the computer on this once a week for you and show you how this is going. And if you see you're looking at this, you say, whoops, the USDA yield is way too high. Whoops, it's way too low. This one thing puts you on the right side of the market. By paying a kid $1 every week to come by and punch the key on the computer for you and see how things are running. That's where the air comes from in the USDA. And what is the price on, this is the risk wheel. People say, what's a risk wheel, Elwynn? This is it. It's kind of a funny wheel. The highest yield we could get with today's hybrids, if the weather's as good as it's ever been in the Corn Belt, is 198 bushels the acre for the nation right now. That's for the Corn Belt. That's the highest we could get if the weather's perfect. What's the lowest if the weather's as bad as it's ever been since we've been keeping records? 136. So we're dealing between a low of 136 and a high of 198. What is the trend? The trend is right here. It is 169 bushels to the acre. What is the most likely corn yield? It's the bottom of the wheel. These green and yellow and blue and red zones change depending on what the weather's doing. This is the way it is to this point in this year. Most likely yield, 172 to 173 bushels to the acre. What's the chance that it'll be a higher yield than that? Well, it can be over here, it can be over there. This is 100% there, 0% there. How do you use the risk wheel? Well, the guy I get my weather information and my marketing information from says, we got a sell signal, sell some grain. How much? Some. No, how much should I sell? Some. Why don't you tell me how much I should sell? It's up to you. What kind of help's that? Here's a buy signal. Buy some of your grain back. You got calls and puts. How much should I buy back? Some. How much? Some. Why won't you tell me? Because I don't really know the risk of the price. Now, okay, I've got a little plot about as big as this room. Actually, I got a bunch of them my students work with. And when they're done measuring their yield off the plots, then they put the corn in a pickup truck and they go down to the elevator and sell it. And the pickup truck bed holds just exactly 100 bushels, so the kids go down to the elevator and they pull into the elevator, and the co-op manager came out and says, you're Elwynn students, aren't you? Yep. You're here to sell me 100 bushels of corn, aren't you? Yep. He said, I'll give you $3.45. Okay. Take half of it. I thought you wanted to sell the whole 100 bushels. We do. But not at $3.45. $3.45, we want to sell half of it. Why is that? Because there's a 50% chance when I come back next month with my 100 bushels that the price will be lower. So I'll be glad I sold it to you. But there's a 50% chance the price will be higher. And I'll be glad I didn't sell it to you. So I'm going to sell you the corn that's at risk of going down in price. If it was a 25% chance in going down in price, I'd sell you 25 of my 100 bushels. I know exactly how many bushels to sell on my sell signal. I've got the risk wheel. I know what the risk is of price going up or going down. I know the most likely harvest price is $3.45 this year, December contract while you're out harvesting. This edition in the wheel. It may change a few cents in the next one I put out. How do I get that? Well, right there. There's Elwynn's picture. That's Elwynn on Twitter. Me and the president. Except mine makes, I almost said mine makes sense. Well, there is my outlook for how to be on the right side of the grain market. And for this year, that yes, above trend yield. The USDA estimate to now was right, and I think will be, 2 bushels above trend. I suspect my next calculation is going to say 3, but I'm just suspecting 2 bushels above trend for both corn and beans. Thank you for inviting me to be with you. I wish you a good year. You can have these pictures if you want them. If you have a question, well, I'll give you a couple of minutes to ask them. Who's got a question? Frost? Yeah. When is frost going to come? On our late planted corn. When will it hurt? Any time before Dent. How far are you from Dent? He doesn't know. You really planted late. Okay. You need to send me a letter on that. I'll send you back a graph for the stage of your corn at this time and what at 28 degrees would do to you. At 32 won't hurt, by the way. It takes 28 to kill corn. Came to my desk. How often do we get 100-year floods? How many have wondered that? How often do we get a 100-year flood? 1% chance of getting it, 100 years, but that was in 1950 when they came up with the idea of a 100-year flood. They looked at all the floods and how often they occur, what the reoccurrence is, and said this is a 100-year flood when the water gets this deep. The amount of rain we get. When we first put weather stations in Illinois and Iowa, 1890, we got so many days of rain per year. Now, we get twice as many rainy days per year as we did as we came into the 1900s. Twice as many rainy days. But by 1950, we had almost twice as many rainy days as we did before, but only 10% more precipitation. And now it's gone up another 10%. We've got twice as many rainy days, but only 20% more rain. But we came up with the idea of a 20-year flood, a 50-year flood, a 100-year flood in the 1950s. And it was good. 100-year flood, 1% chance it could happen in a year. 50-year flood, 2% chance it could happen in a year. If the 1950s weather But since then, we get 10% more rain per year. 10% more rain means more water down the streams. How much more? Double. 10% more rain doubles the water going down the stream. Why? Because we used to barely get enough rain for what the crops would use. And the 10% extra is all runoff. That's why it doubles it. All right. That was back in the days of 1950 when they came up with the 100-year flood. Now we know we've got twice as much water going down the river. If the river's got twice as much water going down, how often is it over the banks and in flood? Twice as often? No, 6 times as often. Wow, 10% more rain, twice the water going down the river, 6 times as many floods. How often do we get a 100-year flood? Divide 6 into 100. Every 17 years. So we had floods in 93, and I was on the governor's committee, went around to cities. They say, well, should we rebuild on the floodplain or bulldoze that and build on the high ground? And they said, well, it depends on how often you want to build again. And they said, well, it's a 100-year flood, right? Yeah. Well, then let's just rebuild it here. I said, remember, 100-year floods now are going to be coming every 17 years. Folks at Iowa City said, well, we're going to still rebuild on the floodplain. I got an irate call from the folks in Iowa City. They said, you are wrong, Elwynn. I said, pardon me, what was I wrong about? You said it'd be 17 years, it's only been 15, it's done it again. I said, close enough for government work. This time they bulldozed and built up on the high ground for the rebuilding. Yes, 100-year floods, now we're 17-year floods because we get 10% more rainfall. A little bit of climate change gives us a big change. The other thing, did you count the rows on the ears in your field? Do I usually get 18 rows around my ear, and this year I've got 14? Well, you know the percentage that cuts your yield pretty much just from how many rows there are. When does that happen? When does the corn decide how many rows to have on its ear? 4-leaf. We were hot and dry at the 4-leaf stage following being wet and muddy when we planted. So a lot of people have lost 2 or 4 rows off of their ears. Well, you can calculate the percent that cut per plant. So 4-leaf stage is when you do that. That's all the questions I was handed. Thanks again. I wish you a good end to this year.